What's good, guys? Hope everybody had a great week. Kind of on the tail end of a couple long weeks of 2023. January is over. Pretty stoked about that. Thank you. So today, quick introduction before we get our guest in here. I don't know if he needs a ton of introduction, but Jordan from Growcast was probably the first person that got me to do a podcast of any kind. He's had me on 4 or 5 times. And, he was somebody that was an early supporter of mine. Somebody that has done a ton for supporting small breeders. Somebody who, when I had problems with Instagram and kind of building the earliest parts of my business, he was somebody that reached out to me and, and it not only gave me tons of awesome advice, but, was a really awesome supporter early on of my work. So I'm actually really stoked to have Jordan on today.
Hey, what's that? Am I sideways?
Yep.
Here.
There we go.
What's up, everybody?
There we go.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right. What's going on, man?
This is a little less formal than your podcast. It's a little less. It will be a little less polished.
It's all good, man. I'm just here to chill. There's no hard questions, right?
Yeah. I'll throw you the tough ones. We're gonna get to the real nitty gritty at this point.
Right?
We're gonna get to the questions nobody wants to ask.
Exactly. Man, I've had a long one. Let's just chill and smoke, huh?
Oh, bro, you're not telling me anything, dog. I'm on the end of one. Like everything feels to be taking about 4 weeks longer than it should. Like, yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm ready to hang it up and take a vacation and go see something other than my damn self.
Hell yeah, brother. Hell yeah. I see lots of friends.
So how have you been, other than busy?
Good, man. I've been good. Life is good. The grow is good right now. I was in Hawaii, so I had somebody hold on to my genetics for me while I was gone, and I got them back. So we are good to go. I'm happy. I couldn't be happier. We were in the biodome.
You were in Hawaii doing vacation?
Yeah. My family lives out there. My parents live out on.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So I go to visit them like once a year.
That's awesome. Yeah, that sounds horrible, man. That sounds like an awful place to have to go visit family.
Right.
Like all the rest of it I could deal with. Just that's awesome. Yeah, that's awesome.
No, yeah.
So
and it was
the
great
last year and a half has seen you guys pretty much everywhere. Like you guys are all over the place now. From soil class to what? You got a new breeder class you're doing now?
Okay, my audio should be better now. Sorry.
Yeah, that is much better.
Whoops, I forgot what headphones I was wearing. Yeah, man, thank you so much. Well, we made a kind of pledge after everything kind of opened back up to do more in-person stuff. Like, I think that's what people really want right now is to get together in the real world, in the meat world, and get some good education and community, and that's exactly what we've been doing. So we've had a bunch of meetups. We're doing a bunch of different classes. I just launched the home breeding workshop with Rizo Rich. That's really fun. As a breeder yourself, I'm sure you love to see people doing their own work and making their own crosses. So that's what we're going to focus on. And then, of course, the Living Soil class as well, the Great Queen of the Sun. We've been on a tour, and it's been absolutely incredible. We've got 3 more dates. She's going to be finishing out the last 2 weekends. I won't be in attendance, but she will take care of you because she's really, really smart. And we got to see so many growers' soil across the country. It was really cool to look at it under a microscope and be like, oh, the soil quality in Virginia looking so much different than the soil quality in Oklahoma. And it's been a real blessing, man. It's been a lot of fun.
You guys are actually doing soil testing?
We're just looking at it under a microscope, so we're analyzing the soil
Gotcha.
structure, the soil composition, and the microbes specifically. So that class is cool because you get to see the bacteria, and you get to see the protozoa, and, identify the different types of nematodes. It's really, really cool, and we want to take this GrowCast Grow class to another level, and just keep providing people with what they want. Some hash classes, some IPM classes. We want to do it right, man. So we're going to go.
I do want to say this one thing that you mentioned, and I got to double up and just give a little shout out. He and I have never had a ton of direct interactions between the two of us, but Rizo Rich is out there fucking killing it right now. Everything I see that dude putting out, every time I see somebody tagging his stuff,
oh, thank you, man.
Like, it is banging. He's doing good work. And, I know that, you had another partner at one point that passed away, but Rich is the other person that I've kind of seen on the other side with you doing a lot of work.
Oh.
And, props to that, dude. You guys do great work. I mean, almost everything that I've seen that you guys have been involved with, it comes from a place of passion. It comes from a place of content first. And I think that's, once again, a thing that you and I have kind of had in common. But I think one thread between your work and my work that we've run into a lot is that, a lot of the people that I've run into through you and through your podcast have been some of the most passionate, dedicated people. They love growing. They love learning. They're the sort of people that want to talk with people and ask questions. And, it comes from a place of passion. It comes from a place of love for the plant, for the people that are consuming it. And I think that's one thing that a lot of people that find you and your work, I think a lot of that's where it comes from. The ones that stick around is that passion that people pick up on really quick.
I appreciate that, man. That's really, really kind of you. I don't know how to take a compliment, but yeah, I really appreciate that. We just want to teach people. I'm going to get as many people growing as possible. And for those who start growing, I want to educate them on all the areas that they want to learn more about, and go as deeply as we can. That is how I provide value, and that's what I feel like I was put here to do. Rizo Rich, you're absolutely right, dude. He's just been slaying it. And that's why we're excited about this home breeding class, too. People can be pretty intimidated.
Yeah.
So just start the process.
Yeah.
Like, where do I start? It's not like it's that super rocket science-y, but they're just overwhelmed. So we want to teach people exactly how to start their own home breeding journey. So that's going to be really cool, man. I got some.
Another thing that
now.
kind of hurts a lot of people that want to get in is they go online, they talk to other people, and then they see people talking shit about people pollen chucking, and they go, well, I don't want people to feel like I'm doing something shitty when I just want to share with other people strains that I've fallen in love with. Totally. And that's one of the things that I've tried to do in my discussions, and especially here, is to kind of knock down that stigma of you have to have a degree or you have to have some secret knowledge that's only passed around the campfire to be able to get involved with breeding seeds, because it's something that anybody that has the ability to do should do and try. And it's so easy for anybody to get in that, don't be intimidated by any bullshit. Anybody that can breed seeds should give it a shot and try it.
You're absolutely right, man. And I think there's a lot of, you're right, there's a lot of semantic argument there over what makes a breeder. And I understand the whole, inbred line or doing extensive back crossing. But at the end of the day, someone who to me is a breeder is one who breeds cannabis. It's really that simple. And polyhybridization is so fun and easy. Yeah. I want every grower to try it, like you said, at least once before their grow career is over or whatever. So I love that attitude from people like you. And I think a lot of breeders are just threatened. They're threatened that they're going to be creating competition or somehow losing them sales, which, first of all, that's not the point of this, like you said. It's about spreading the information, spreading the love. Second of all, I don't even think that's true. I think that breeders probably buy more seeds than anybody else. You know that. So it's exactly, right? So it's a little bit weird to be like, I don't want to teach this person to breed. I'm going to tell them that it's oversaturated and it's hard and you're a pollen chucker if you don't do it this way.
Yeah.
I really resonate with that terpene. I totally fucking agree. And that's what this breeding class is going to be all about.
Well, I mean, it goes back to, not just the breeding class, but the truth of it is, like, you've been a big supporter of smaller breeders as long as I've been involved with you, and before, as far as I know, as long as Growcast specifically has been around, you've been doing the breeder features. You've been giving breeders, like, even like myself, who, I'm not floating in the mainstream, and that's fine by me.
Right.
But the truth is, like, I still need to be able to get my word out. And one of the best ways that I've been able to do that so far has been through your platform. And to be honest, man, you've done a ton, for smaller breeders. And when I see the people you've had on your breeder features, they're almost always the people that I have a ton of respect for, the people in this industry that are doing really amazing work, but maybe aren't the people you're going to see in High Times every week. And those people, really honestly, those are the people that I think a lot of growers are looking for, because you can find the rest of it. It's all easy to find and it's out there. But once you get to a certain point in your growing or even your breeding, you finally go, what else is there?
Yes.
Because I know there's a ton of crazy other unique and different stuff. And that's how a lot of people have found, me and a lot of the other breeders that you've had on. And that's something that, man, I don't want this to all just be, man, you're killing it. You really are. But the Growcast has done things for my business and just for my exposure that are invaluable, in a simple sense that, like I said, they're not just customers to me. The people that I've gotten from your platform are dedicated and love weed. And that's the passion that we all share that really makes a difference,
You're right, dude. That's really well put. And I do look at my members as a family. Like, it really is. All of the listening audience, I look at as a family. The members are who I spend time with literally every day. But you're right. It's so much more to me. You know what's interesting though? You create these like parasocial relationships, right? Like, I'm flattered as a podcaster to be in somebody's ear while they're working hours and defoliating, or driving 6 hours on a road trip, or to and from work every day, hours each way or whatever. That's like a relationship where I mean something to them, and I'm there to provide them with value and company. Like, that's huge to me. There's another huge parasocial relationship between the breeder and the grower, and it's a really interesting one, because yes, growers are looking for strains that's like, oh, this looks good. But there's a lot of good looking stuff out there. What they really want to do is hear your words. They want to hear why you started. They want to hear what you believe in. They want to hear what your interests are outside of cannabis. And that's really going to be one of the large determining factors of whether or not they buy your gear. And it's just interesting how that's what breeders want to hear. They want to know the mind behind the breeding and whether or not they want to support that person. Because there's a lot of fire out there. And maybe you're working on something that they specifically want, but really they want to know who you are. It's a very interesting relationship. That's
been huge, in the sense that there's so many seed outlets now, or breeders even, that are just big, nameless, faceless, entities as far as people are concerned. They're a brand, but so many people don't know who the people are that are running it. I'll be honest with you, I know for a fact a handful of the biggest breeders don't even make their own seeds.
Right.
They farm all of that out. So there's a whole lot of, like, when you don't have that connection, it's just another product. It's just another take my money and go.
Right.
But there is a different group of people that, like you said, really want to have some connection, whether it's to, the specific strains, to the breeder themselves, or just to the process. Because that's another thing that is often left out of any discussion that we have. So many people that breed seeds, it just happens. It's just a thing that happens, And to be able to talk to those people and understand, A, you know what you're talking about, but B, you're passionate. And so many that I see, you don't have a relationship with the breeder, because most of them you can't even contact.
Yeah.
Most of them will only deal with second or third party seed sites, and there's no contact there. They might have a little customer service, but the reality is you're not going to be able to talk to anybody. And, I buy seeds. I was a buyer before I was ever a breeder. So, like you said, some of the biggest buyers are people like myself who, you know, I love seeds. My wife would tell you it's out of control, both in its volume and in its intensity. It's just something that kind of happens at this point, and I don't, you know, I can only control so much of it.
Yeah.
But like the truth is, I know as a customer what I want, and that's what I've tried to provide for people, you know?
100%.
And I think that's the other difference in that for a lot of breeders, growers, nutrient companies, lighting companies, they're all just nameless, faceless customers to them. Whereas, at least on my business, a lot of what I've had to do literally is know the people that run my gear. For the simple fact that we talk all the time. There's 5 or 6, maybe 10 growers. I probably message as much as my wife.
Right.
Because that's just how much we interact, and it's not always about weed. A lot of times it's just life, and sometimes we're just chatting about whatever is new or whatever's, but they probably know as much about me and my life as, you know, as anybody else does. And that's the kind of thing that, like, it's not necessary, but at the end of the day, I think that's what a lot of customers really appreciate about, you know, not even just breeders like myself, but like people like you who are just genuinely passionate and who started all of what they're doing with passion first as the driver, you know. And it's with this podcast, I said to myself, monetization and any of the building of a brand is much easier when you start from a place of content.
Yeah.
When you start from a place of, I have something that people like to listen to, then the rest of it all becomes kind of easy,
Exactly,
you know. And it's like
what you're talking about is providing value.
Yeah,
this is a secret to wealth creation and money, and more importantly, happiness. You guys, you ready for this? This is a big one. Strap in. Before wealth can be pilfered or embezzled or misused or mishandled or stolen or whatever, it has to be generated. It has to be generated by providing some sort of good or service that makes people's lives easier. You taught someone something, you entertained them somehow, you made them laugh, you did something to provide some sort of value. And if you can focus on that value creation, whether it's inside the cannabis space or outside, the money will come. That's the easy part of the equation. The fulfillment and the money will come if you simply find the points where you can provide the most value to people around you, and then focus on that. And you know what, Terp? What you just said is an important point, because if you want to look at it from that kind of like market perspective, these faceless breeding seed brands that, like you said, is literally just a brand. I don't want to disparage anybody, but you guys know who I'm talking about. The types of companies that I'm talking about. You know the brand, but there is no breeder behind it. If there's too many of those, what it does is it creates a vacuum for people like you, right? For people who will come on to somebody's show and talk about it. You are now creating extra value in a market that's become relationally hollow. So if you can provide that relationship, suddenly you've just provided extra value. But like you said, at the end of the day, it's just about being authentic. Cannabis growers hate that inauthenticity, man. You know what I mean? When they hear that somebody's selling seeds saying it's a different strain, that's a fucking deal breaker for virtually every single grower. If somebody's out there misrepresenting themselves, that's a huge deal breaker. So it's just an interesting relationship.
What are you growing these days?
Oh man, let's see. In the tent right now, I've got some truffle cake. Rich has been playing with his truffle cake, and I grew the tectonic truffle, which was a cross off the truffle cake, cross to our peach quake, and that one, dude, smelled like peach schnapps or like peach acetone, like some sort of peach fingernail polish remover. It was insane.
Yeah.
So now I'm going the mom to that strain, because the peach quake is very dominant with its aroma. When you cross the peach quake, the aroma really seems to dominate a lot of the F1 generation.
The structure on that one is nuts. On that peach quake, it's
I know, man.
Dense, it's huge, it's chunky, gorgeous.
It's one of my favorites. Rich is already like moving on to other stuff, and I'm like, dude, the peach quake, work the peach quake, Rich. Someone just said, sad that we missed each other in Richmond. Dude, I'll be right back there. We're going to do a breeder class in Richmond, so I'll be there.
Yeah, I think that was my man, Mac Blunts. He does my Wednesday show with me. I was trying to link you two up, but like the last 2 months of me have just been a mess. He'll tell you that as much as anybody. It's been a mess. I started these podcasts at one of the strangest times in my life, and it was one of those where I said, I don't have enough on my plate. Like, let's stack some more on it. And so I was trying to link the two of you while you were there. But yeah, next time you're there, I'll get you two up, man.
Hey, that's awesome, man. Yeah, I think I'd connect with them. Oh, and Chi-Town in chat, too. Chi-Town Canachico grew an amazing peach quake. That was one of my favorite phenoms that I ever saw. Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm really, really stoked. The other thing that I've been toying around with, Terpene, that I think you would like is I've been growing some Hawaiian strains. I've been going back.
I was about to ask you that.
Yeah, man. Just like they are different. Shout out to Good Gear Seeds. Shout out to Molokai Kevin. I've just been playing with some Hawaiians. I grew the Molokai Citrus Kush, and this is a plant that smelled like someone did a burnout on a pile of permanent markers, or like somebody built a bonfire out of Sharpies. It was so loud. It was the loudest plant in my tent.
Let me ask you something that I have a specific question relating to genetics as far as the islands go. Like, the thing that would interest me the most would be that Vietnam era shit that's been on the island for decades. Like the oldest stuff there. Because the one thing that's really neat about that area is that, all of those strains were essentially Southeast Asian sativas, right? So they're not wildly known for insanely fruity. There's a lot of fruity profiles, but like once they've kind of taken to the island and acclimated, almost everything that's ever come back out of that acclimation off the islands is this level of tropical that's just unreal and is legendary within cannabis.
That's right, dude. That's exactly right. It's all about the terroir when it comes to Hawaii.
Right.
That's my theory, and it checks out because everyone I talk to says, "Oh, the Maui Wowie was just a Oaxacan. It was a Mexican strain that made its way over, acclimated over the course of 30, 40 years, and now is a completely unrecognizable different strain. Why? Because of the different diversity of biology, right? Because of the different diversity, all of the terroir, not just the soil and the medium that it's in, and the nutrition and the volcanic environment, but also the salinity of the air, right? The saltwater air, the humidity, the heat, the Hawaiian sun. These are intangibles that over time...
The sun is a big one. The sun and the proximity to the sun is something that we've definitely seen, especially as it relates to trichome production, oil production. Yeah, that's really, that's a big one, man.
It's so true, man. And then the other weird one about Hawaii is their light cycle. Their light cycle requires the opposite of what someone like me is used to. So if you're growing outside in Humboldt, you run your plants in veg, and then you do light deprivation, right? You tarp it off to get them into flower. In Hawaii, it's the opposite. If you put out plants, they'll flower too soon. So you need to do light supplementation. So the growers out there, you'll see if you fly in at night, especially on Molokai, you'll see a bunch of like floodlights in people's backyards because they bring out the floodlights to keep the plant in veg, and when they're ready to flower, they take it away. I thought that was pretty cool because most of the year is like 11-13 out there. In fact, the Hawaiian strains do better on 11-13. Every breeder has told me to grow them on 11-13. They seem to finish faster. They seem to finish more evenly. And even super skeptical guests like Dr. Coco have said that there could be something to that. They really.
So I did a little bit of work with that for a while.
Mm-hmm.
I would say 10% of strains don't like it.
Sure,
I would
that would make sense
say
too.
most everything sees a little bit faster finishing. I mean, it kind of makes sense,
Yep.
But generally speaking, it wasn't the sort of gains that were worth the added risk slightly of when they didn't go well. The problem was almost always hermaphrodites. So it was when
wow.
the 5 to 10% that didn't like it,
You don't
what
want those
inevitably would
growing.
happen is they would just herm like shit right away.
Whoa, that's really
Almost within days of flipping to the different. Because here's the other thing. I've talked to people that did straight into 11-13, and I've talked to other people that did 12-12 and then into like a later
Later on.
11-13.
Right.
That's the way I always did it,
Mhm.
was the 12-12 first, because I always worried that when I saw so many issues with going into it staggered, that by doing it straight into maybe out of veg and into that might cause even more problems. Let's be honest, man. Most strains will herm if you fuck with their light schedules.
Yeah, absolutely. When I did that run, I did straight into 11-13, and I did notice in the non-Hawaiian heirloom strains a slight reduction in yield. Right, you're reducing the amount of photon saturation by almost 10%. I didn't see a 10% reduction in yield, but I feel like I saw a slight reduction in yield. But the Hawaiians finished totally different than they did the next run on 12-12. Finished totally different. It was really wild.
That's the one thing that I've seen it work well with is late flowering sativas, anything naturally equatorial, Southeast Asian, and it's because it's more closer to their natural lighting schedule. Yeah,
100%. Back to what you were saying though, the Hawaiian genetics. You're exactly right. A lot of those strains came from other places, like I said, Maui Wowie being related to a Oaxacan, and a lot of the strains coming from Southeast Asia, specifically Vietnam. As you know, Hawaii is a huge military state. Pearl Harbor being down there, and there's military bases all over. They even use the military in anti-cannabis operations. Their version of camp, their anti-cannabis division out there, is called Green Harvest. They work with the military and would really do things like heat tracing and using the military choppers and rappelling into cannabis grows. It's really a wild history. Anybody who's watching, there's a Growcast episode on it. So make sure to check that out. But yeah, so a lot of the old heads and a lot of the old heads were veterans. So they bring back from Vietnam whatever they could find, a Cambodian, a Laotian, a Vietnamese strain, and next thing you know, it's there for 40 years, and it's a Hawaiian. And now it's Molokai hash plant, right? It's really, really interesting, and it is indeed a different strain by all measures. Really, really cool.
Yeah,
to see.
And man, I mean, that's one of those. The craziest thing that when you look at what we now look at as some of the most, some of the building blocks of genetics in cannabis, we have so much to credit to those vets that came back, especially ones that were stationed in Southeast Asia, because to be honest, man, and especially India as well, that's where we got, so many of the Afghan and the Pakistani Indian genetics that we all love now. A lot of it were either hippie travelers or Vietnam vets. And so much of the cannabis that's now considered native to parts of the world, there's no native weed there. That's because somebody brought genetics there, shared them, and they've been there since. And that's the coolest strains on the planet left are those ones that haven't just been hybridized to all shit, but that still have super complex, have a lot to offer. Like so much of those earlier strains, I tell people all the time, there's a reason they're not around anymore, because they didn't grow well indoors. They weren't fit to grow indoors. A lot of them weren't fit to grow outdoors in certain climates. And so much of those genetics that got brought over, it goes into the skunk argument a lot, right? It's almost become a trope now at this point, but there is a huge debate about what happened to what skunk people remember. If you're a little older than me, and I'm in my 40s, if you're older than me and you remember skunk, the reason that's not around anymore was because it was terrible to grow indoors. It was super lanky. It hermed like hell. It just, there's viable reasons why it didn't make the transition.
So what does that mean? Does that mean we have to appreciate those strains and keep them around somehow? Because in 30 years you're gonna fucking miss it. Is that the lesson, or is it to let go of things that you love?
They're still there. Here's the thing, though. so many of those people in that skunk argument, they're not chasing a strain. They're chasing a memory.
Yeah, bro.
They're chasing
definitely
a time in their life that no longer exists.
Mhm.
There's tons of skunky weed out there. Tons. If you pop enough seeds, you run into it. It's not
Right.
it's not extinct. It's not the dodo bird. But the truth is, it will never be that thing that you had that time. That's gone. Whatever that was is likely gone. So a lot of that,
that's so true.
yeah, a lot of that, there's a practicality why some of them didn't make it. But the reality is there's still skunky weed out there.
Yeah, man, that's exactly right. And it's never going to live up to your expectation of what it was in your head. Now, I'm jealous of this, though, because I never got skunk weed. In Chicago, like 2004 to 2006, like my high school days, I didn't get skunk weed. So I hear all this talk about the skunk weed. Riser Rich talking about the Virginia Beach skunk and all this shit.
Yeah, I was going to say, on the East Coast, it was really, really, really common. And I've got one of the things that I'm planning, like we're talking about doing, is a multi-part series with some friends of mine that goes back to like the 90s, early 2000s about weed in Athens, Georgia. And it's been an area that all the way back to the 70s has had a very, very rich cannabis history that nobody knows and has talked about. And a lot of that talks about a lot of those early skunk strains that we used to get that were really common, but that weren't shit in the grow room. Mm-hmm. And it was really, really, really common at one point in the South, to the point where a lot of people down south of Florida to, like you said, Virginia, we burned out on it at a certain point because it was one of those things that it just, everything was skunky as shit for a long time. And then we hit a point where it was just like, oh, we've got access to all this other stuff once, you know, genetics and, you know, we started trading and finding other shit. But there's always been skunk weed. Now, whatever somebody remembers as roadkill skunk, I don't know, man. That sounds like a memory that you have that isn't really rooted in the genetics and the gene pool
that you're clinging on.
Yeah, because if you get out there and pop seeds, there's skunky weed out there. I'll send you some seeds, man. You know, I'll send you some stuff to, like, you know, if you never had skunky weed, let's get you some skunky weed, dog. Like,
100%.
But just to put that myth to bed, it's one of the resounding myths of cannabis right now.
And that's one of the reasons we want to get people breeding their own, man, is like people can talk about this stuff and how it's all gone, or you can get breeding and like see if you can recreate something close and make something special. That's what this game is all about. If you really broke down what cannabis is, what growing cannabis is all about or for, what the purpose is, number one thing is like finding the strain that works for you, probably medicinally. There's probably something that you have, some sort of ailment, even if it's just needing to relax at the end of the day. You have one specific need that this plant is going to try to provide for you. And so you're searching through cultivars all day long to see if you can find that perfect strain. Once you find it, you want to keep it, right? You want to clone it. You want to have it. That's kind of the whole point of this thing. If you look into the botany of desire, plants trying to fulfill a response to our needs and our wants, that's how they're playing us, bro. They mix the terpenes and try to hit the spot for us so that they can proliferate, right? And now suddenly their genetics are being passed all around the world through our mail system. Think about that for a second. That's the botany of desire at work. So again, what is this whole thing about? It's kind of about searching through these cultivars, finding the unique ones, and then you could make an argument breeding with those, making some sort of preservation project to keep them around or cross off of them to share them with other people. When you think about the end game of cannabis, that's kind of what it's all about. And in a way, the plant is playing us. But I'm all here for it. You know, it's a wonderful relationship.
Right. So, and the other side that I keep saying, and we've mentioned this a couple of times. So the other argument of the skunk side is that if you believe that happened, then it's your duty to find your favorite two strains and to make sure that they make it into the next generation of plants.
100%.
Because that's the true way that your favorite strain or your friend's favorite strain or, you know, that one thing that you got back in the day that you still have some seeds tucked in your closet of, That's how you make sure that that makes it to the next generation, because seeds, while they do last a long time, don't last forever. And until it becomes a plant and gets shared, it doesn't really enter the public lexicon of these are all the strains in the world. Let's make sure it gets to the next generation of smokers. And that's what we're seeing now, is so many people are going back and finding those strains that they loved, they remember, but until you find two of them and make more of them and share them, there's no guarantee that it's going to be around for, you know, the next generation of people to really enjoy.
Exactly. These things can go away forever. We really take that for granted. And also, you do kind of have to just, well, I mean, it depends, right? Strains change over time. A lot of people say that it's viroid accumulation that makes these expressions change. You've had it before, right? You run this strain. When I used to grow more plants back in Humboldt, like 100 plus at a time, I would see over a couple of cloning generations a little bit of change, right? I think people label it genetic drift. I think that's actually kind of a
I just call
misnomer
it
with the
cloning depression. It's the same as a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. Like at a certain point, it's just not as vigorous.
A lot of people say that's because of viroid and virus accumulation within the DNA. That's what's actually happening there, because there's viroids and viruses all around us and within us. Specifically, us as humans have many, many viruses within our microbiome, and it just changes things about you. So, you know, there's tissue culture cloning that you can try to remediate some of these things, but I guess at the end of the day, like, you have to do twofold. When you find that magical strain, you have to do your best to preserve it or proliferate it, and then simultaneously,
however you can,
and then simultaneously, you have to enjoy it for what it is now, because, like you said, it may be gone or different in a couple of years, and you'll never have the same thing again.
So let me just address one of those things that I kind of think there's a nuance to, and it's kind of become the fashionable thing to blame everything on random viroids because we're just learning about it.
Sure.
So the nature is to kind of overprescribe and now try to say that, like, every problem that we've seen is under this new banner of this thing that's just brand new. And the reality is some of it may be, but we've also seen, you know, that can't account for all of it. That can't account for the sheer nature of that in controlled environments. Most of the viroids come from outside pathogens of some sort. The nature that you're just picking up rare and exotic plant viruses in a completely contained closet grow is really fucking slim, unless you're just the sort of person that mows yards for a living and comes home every day and works directly with your plants. The chances of that happening is much greater in a massive commercial grow where corners get cut and little things happen, and then it gets passed on from cut to cut to cut through the mail, through people, through their grows, and that's where it starts and goes on. The notion that every time that we've seen, you know, plants in cloning depression, I always call it cloning depression, because even in a completely sealed environment away from other pathogens and viroids, we've seen this happen. So there's definitely something to be said that over a certain generation of cloning, clones of clones of clones, there is something that happens that I don't believe is genuinely virus related.
To your point, I think that it kind of falls into, like, there's no free lunches in nature. Like you said, a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. It would make me inclined to believe that there might be something to that methodology in itself that would be degrading or degradatory. You know, that is a good point. But yeah, man, it's whatever's happening there. You might not, even if you keep your plant around, you might not have the same expression forever, which is to me a frightening possibility. I want the peach dosi to taste like the peach dosi forever.
Well, that's one of those things that, though, for years I've always kind of said that, like, as much as I've loved plants, there was never a plant that I was really going to lose tears over losing. And it was always for me because I have this real bad ADD with strains, in a sense that even my favorite one, at a certain point I went, man, I need something else. So, like, there's nothing that I've ever been, and this is in 40, you know, I've been smoking for 30 years. I've been collecting seeds for 20 some years. Never found anything that I couldn't go, you know what, I'll pop another seed. Let's see what else is out there.
To have, man. I personally like that attitude. You see some people, and I'm envious of them in a way. In fact, I'm extremely envious of them, not just in a way. These people who grow the same fucking strain for 30 years. I knew this guy out in NorCal, and he just grew the same strain. It was called the Black, and it was good. And he would bring it, and he would drop it off to my Uncle Jack, may he rest in peace. Uncle Jack, who used to smoke the Black. Uncle Jack had one eye. He was a master carpenter, and he could barely fucking see.
Awesome.
And
this story's getting better by the minute.
he could barely fucking see, but he would get out to the shop every morning. I stayed above that shop in a little studio, a half a studio apartment above that wood shop for a summer before I started growing in Humboldt County. And Uncle Jack took me in, and like I said, he would get out there, he could barely see, but he would still be able to put together a finished cabinet, like fine carpentry. And Uncle Jack's friend had been growing him weed for decades in Humboldt County. And every time I'm going, Jack, this is awful familiar. What is this strain again? The Black. It's all he grows. This guy has grown the same strain for 30 fucking years.
Dude, I will say that, like, one of the things that I've noticed, especially with those outdoor guys, and especially in the Pacific Northwest, Northern California area, was that they had so many. It's not the greatest place on the planet to grow weed. It's just not. And so when they found strains that worked for them, they damn sure stuck with them motherfuckers, you know? And like,
so
I think I think that's probably what led to the initial proliferation of Blue Dream.
Yep.
Was just, it's one of those strains that isn't PM prone, does pretty well with the mildew. It's not intensely dense, but it's dense enough that you can yield. But, you know, it checks the boxes for certain areas of the country. And when those guys found a strain, they stuck with it. Like they knew what they had. It was a cash crop. And it applies to, we were just talking about on one of the other pods about Tom Hill and a big interview that he just did with somebody. And he talked about, certain strains like the haze for him, that once they found that strain that just knocked everybody the fuck out, they just grew the shit out of it and said, fuck everything else. If it didn't compare, why bother?
Dude, that's the heirloom farmer mentality, right? Find what works in your situation. I think that's a big problem. There's an episode that's dropping on Monday on Growcast that talks exactly about this. It's about pitfalls to avoid in your grow, like 5 big mistakes to avoid in your grow. And one of them is, don't get so hung up on that strain that is like not doing well in your tent, right? Like that was kind of, to me, I'm not running the Molokai Citrus Kush again because it just didn't like my feed schedule. It was such a heavy feeder, and it needed that Molokai red dirt. So finding the strains that work for you. Now, again, if you find something that's like really good medicinally and it's a really finicky strain, you might just have to learn the nuances of that strain. But that aside, just kick that bitch. It's not working. That one ain't working. Get a different one. That's my general.
The one thing that as we have more testing access, a lot of things that I think we're going to see is where people can go and find out what that particular strain, what it is about that strain that has made it so medicinal for them. Then you can go out and find other strains with similar, whether it be terpene profiles, cannabinoid profiles. But like, once again, I get to the point where like every strain should be replaceable. There's more seeds being produced right now than at any point on the planet.
Yeah.
And it's like,
you're so right.
If there's something that's that finicky that it's a bitch to grow, figure out why you love it. And then find something that's, there's something else better out there that grows similarly or grows better, but has a similar whatever medicinal aspect it is.
Yeah, hunt that terpene. That's a really good point. Can I address chat here for a second? There's a few things I want to
please.
Do you mind, man?
No, whatever, man.
Disbanded Brotherhood said that he also grew the Black. You're the only person that I've ever heard since telling this story. I think I told it in membership only. But
I've heard of it.
Can you maybe tell me like anything about that? Do you still have it? Where did you get it? I just like to hear anything about the Black. Because like I said, that's a very fond memory for me. I was 20 years old, living in that shop. Shy Mass said he wanted to know where you bought weed in Chicago, if you were really from the city. I was not from the city. I was from the western suburbs. So like South Elgin is where I lived for the majority of my time out there. I won't say the high school that I went to, but you probably know it. And where did I buy my weed? Producer Jay. Shout out to Producer Jay. He's still part of the fucking show. That's where I bought my weed. Yo, shout out Producer Jay. Yeah, then there was Tano in the chat. I wanted to say hey to, but yeah, that was it. I just wanted to catch up with the chat. Sorry, I had to.
Yeah, no doubt, man. No doubt. Dude, the funny thing about Chicago, like, I got to be honest with you, I don't hear a lot of people talking very highly of the Chicago weed, especially as it relates to the legal market. People are super not happy with it.
Garbage.
The ins and outs of I guess the politics of how everything fell apart and fell, and went legal.
Yeah.
It's not been good stuff, I've heard.
It's bad. It's garbage. The quality is terrible. There's 22 cultivators to supply the whole state. The exact opposite of what we want. Now, they allowed home grow, but they have a 5-plant count limit. Oh man, I've been blazing, so I'm getting there. But the problem with Illinois is those 22 cultivators are mostly MSOs. They're total garbage. And then there's rife corruption. Allegedly, one of the normal people involved with Normal, the rights group, allegedly there was some shenanigans with the new grow licenses, specifically the equity licenses, and they all wound up in one person's hands magically with a raffle that was it's really, really ugly.
That's bizarre.
But they allow one shred of hope with the home grow. And so that's my whole mission. And like, I'm trying to crack that code, right? Because no one's quite done it right yet, which is we need to get people growing, we don't need to talk to new growers. We need to talk to non-growers. And we need to get these people planting their seed for the first time, because a lot of them are going to grow one plant and then not ever grow again because it's just not for them. They're busy. They didn't have the interest. They'll just continue to buy their mids from the dispo, and that's totally fine, right? I'm fine with that. But I'm thinking that 10 or 20% of people who smoke, if they really gave it a shot and had a good instructor on their first time and were able to get to a harvest, I think those people would become growers for life. We could get them off of the boof hamster wheel that is the legal market, and save a fuck ton of money, and more importantly, have a great time gardening. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. So yeah, Illinois is a terrible example of a legalization, but they leave a shred of hope with a small grow law. I just wish they would raise their plant count because it's so hard on the patient.
So let me give you my perspective on kind of the nuance of what you're saying as it relates to home grows. And this is kind of the opinion that I've had from day one. So the beautiful thing in giving you the ability to grow your weed at home isn't necessarily that they're letting you run X amount of plants or this or that or the other. It makes a small home grow a lowest priority for law enforcement, which means they then take their resources and delegate their resources to things like monitoring the big grows, monitoring big illegal grows. So what that means is that at that point, they don't have the resources to police every 4 to 6 lighter in the state. So if they tell you you can grow 5 plants, I'm not telling you to do anything otherwise. But what I am saying is that essentially means that for law enforcement, they're not stressing your small grow. So the reality is that by having just that provision to home grow, most people don't realize that that's so much bigger than they gave me 5 plants. Now, you can read in between the lines of that whatever the fuck you want. But that's been my perspective on it as I watched it in Colorado, and as I watched that sort of thing, that eventually the state goes in just legalizing and in giving the ability to home grow. It essentially says we don't have the resources to police all of this that's now been thrown out of Pandora's box. Yeah. So be careful out there. Whatever you're doing, be careful out there. And I will tell you, don't stress them 5 plants. Do what you got to do. Get your work done. Enjoy your little home grow, your little home distillation setup where you make your home brew beer. The two are no different. Having your little small grow in your house and doing it yourself, being able to control the parameters is the same as having a small, I make my micro brews at home and I share them with my buddies. Yeah, it's the same thing.
I'll tell you, man, there's a lot of people in Chicago still doing the black market. The problem with those over-regulations is, like you said, it suddenly puts more power back into the people who are growing underground. They size up a little bit, and next thing you know, the home, not the home grower, the black market grower is just putting out really good shit. And why would you as long as you know somebody, why would you ever go to the dispensary? You don't even get your medical card. You just pick it up because it's recreational. And it's a really interesting state. It's been a big juxtaposition moving to Oklahoma, where they were allowing $2,500 licenses. You can just start a grow for $2,500. How fucking, now they already put a moratorium on that and they're trying to shut it down. But how fucking cool is that, man? It creates its own
If I'm not mistaken,
but I love it.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, the state that I've heard, especially as it pertains to home grows, and maybe somebody can, chime in and tell me whether I'm right or wrong, was Maine. The people that point to Maine say that Maine, if I'm not mistaken, has some sort of home grower provision where you can grow your own and license yourself to sell it to dispensaries or to, to be whatever it is. Right.
That's so cool, man. That's where it's at. And the only problem with that is testing. You just need to have the product tested. So that's the perfect system. And that's how it was back in the day in the California medical system. I could just walk into a dispensary and they would test a couple of different ways. Like usually they would inspect it and they would smoke it, right? Some people would put it under a microscope where you're going to be able to see any significant mold or things like that. And I had heard about people doing actual testing back then, but I had never personally seen it. Now, if you were allowed to do that and you just simply had labs that were licensed and were actually doing their job and just run through, that is the perfect. That is the. They'll never allow it. They'll never.
Because I don't know that exists anywhere. No. I don't know of anywhere where you can safely get even just the basic cannabinoid profile. I mean, forget terps or anything. Just a safety profile, even if you're not a licensed entity in a licensed state. So, man, we're down to our last 10 minutes or so. To be honest, man, let's talk about what you got going on. Where can people find you in the next immediate and what you got going on?
Yeah, man. Thank you. This was really fun. This absolutely flew by. My phone's dying, so it's perfect timing. Follow me on Growcast, of course, Growcast Podcast. We're on Spotify. We're on your favorite podcast app. Check us out. Check out the episodes of Terp Fiend. We'll get you back on and then get you on Growcast TV, of course, for the members.
Anytime.
And then, what we're doing is we have our next class we have a New York class, Secrets to a Successful Harvest. It comes with a full line of nutrients. It comes with seeds. It's in New York City a week from today. So check that out. It's by Rooted Leaf. I'm simply speaking at the event. So if you want to come and see us in New York, there's also an industry night the night before. Just come on down to the industry night. If you see this and you're in New York, that's rootedleaf.com. And then see our classes at growcastpodcast.com/classes. We're in Rockford for the breeder class, March 4th. Queen of the Sun has 3 dates. You can go and see her. I won't be at those, but she's going to crush them. She's a genius and a soil master. So she's in Boston. You'll see all the dates out there, Missouri. And stay tuned for more, man. Fucking, we're doing it. We're doing it big. And then Growcast Seed Co., growcastpodcast.com/seedco. We're making moves, Terp Fiend. We're making moves. Thank you for inviting me on.
You guys are running your own seed site now, too?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Seed Co.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's Rizo Rich. So to be clear, Rizo Rich is he's the head breeder of Growcast Seed Co. That's all his work. I didn't want to, make it like a half-assed side gig and make genetics. Rizo Rich has been my good friend, and he started Growcast Seed Co. It's his genetics. He works full-time on it. And,
that's awesome.
How do the peach terps do in Hawaii? Not well. I fly with the peach terps, and you gotta keep it in a nice enclosed environment. That's what I've learned about a lot of terps. Sorry, I got this.
And I found the humidity has a lot to do with, natural humidity has a lot to do with terpene expression.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree.
We could do a whole hour on that. We've talked about that a few times.
This was fun.
Another what?
Another episode, anytime.
Yeah, absolutely. No, absolutely, Jordan. So once again, man, I got to be honest with you, man. I didn't want to come and just fluff you for an hour, but you really were one of the first, you were the first person that got me to do a podcast of any type. And to be honest, I've always said I'm fine at talking this shit. It's what I do. I can talk shit all day long, and we can talk about any facet of the industry for an hour, no problem.
Oh, okay.
But you were really one of those people, aside from having kind of pushed me in that direction you also were there when shit fell apart with Instagram and like encouraged me to get my website set up. And like, dude, there were so many things that like, I know to you it didn't seem like much, but at the end of the day, man, sometimes having somebody who at least has some like, listen, man, everything's going to fuck up. You're always going to deal with shit. Get your head in the game, put your eyes on the prize, and diversify. You know, and that was really it was much more polite than that, but that was in essence, that was,
awesome.
you know, the gist of the conversation. And it's led to so much for me as far as just how I thought about my business and taking certain shit seriously and diversifying, putting my face out there, getting the website set up. So, you know, thank you so much. To be honest, you've done so much for a lot of people, man.
Thanks.
But it really is one of those things that I know it comes from a place of love for the plant, love for the people that consume it. And you know, you're out there, and anybody, any point, check out Jordan's classes. You know, check out the Growcast if you haven't. There's tons of episodes that are worth watching. If you're ever looking for seeds, check Jordan out. Apparently, those guys are. I didn't know Rizzo Rich was part of, like, I knew he was part of that, but I didn't know that was like you guys' entire seed on now.
Whoa,
that's awesome. It's so awesome. And it's like, it's once again, man, I got nothing but respect. Dude is crushing it. Everything I've seen with that peach quake just makes my mouth water, you know, and I can tell because when I have an eye for pictures, I look at Instagram all day long. So when I see the same plant, different growers 4 or 5 times, and I go like, well, shit, that's fucking peach quake. I can tell no matter who the fuck's growing it, like dank as fuck, dense as fuck, like hammerhead, straight, like, and it's really one of those that like
I really appreciate
killing it. And you know, the other thing is, if you're ever looking for genetics, no matter what your flavor is, you can always find it terpfiend.com, www.terpfiend.com. You're the reason I went back and did that whole terp drip project.
Gave me some of the terp squirt, and I was like, oh my god, it was really, really
Wait,
good.
they gave you flour?
Yeah. I think it was the terp.
Oh, wow.
Squirt. Yeah.
How was it?
It was fucking great.
That's fucking awesome. That's one of those pineapple sorbet terp drip.
Yeah. Yep.
So, yeah. Oh, man, I can only imagine.
Yeah. Out in Virginia.
That's
dude,
awesome.
You're so kind. I appreciate the kind words. It was I really appreciate that. You have no idea how much that meant to me today specifically. And I want to shout out chat one more time. Somebody shouted out Rob. Thank you so much. And Tops is in the chat, and Terpination, Domination, and Hashcoma. And I love you all. And Potent Ponics, my best friend.
I will say this, the couple of times I checked our viewer numbers tonight, they were double what they've ever been. So we definitely got a ton of crossovers tonight, man.
Round 2.
You know, I always appreciate it. Yeah. I know. We'll do another one anytime, Jordan. Like I said, the beautiful thing about being able to chat with people who already talk weed pretty much for a living is that just get us on a topic. Like every time you and I ever did the Growcast, we always got done and we were like, dude, we could do a Joe Rogan 3-hour and still have more shit to talk about, you know?
Let's talk about chimpanzees, okay? They're crazy. Let me tell you about animals. We're going to talk about tigers.
Yeah, I will say, you were the first guest that I've had so far that was just like, that sent me topics, which I kind of like because it gives me somewhere to go if I run out, you know, if we kind of run thin. But, you know, it's just awesome talking to somebody else.
Topics. But that's fine, though, because it was great.
We got to 60-70% of them.
hey, that's it, you know? That's a good batting average.
But, I mean, yeah, it's just easy. It's just easy.
All right,
we're going to call it, Jordan. I'm going to let you get, bro, because I got a couple other things. Thank you so much, dog.
Peace,
Check
brother.
this kid out. Anywhere he's at, it's solid. And, you know, just family, man. Growcast family. I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for everything.
Appreciate you, man. Take care, everybody. Take care, Terp. Bye.